We all thought the war with Sumit's parents was over. We were wrong. An inside source has just leaked documents exposing a cold, calculated plot that goes far beyond family disapproval. This isn't about age. It's about money. And Jenny was the target all along. What we've uncovered is a devastating financial con that was years in the making. A scheme so cruel and methodical it will change everything you thought you knew about this family. The smiles, the acceptance, the supposed peace. It was all a mask for a sinister agenda designed to leave Jenny Slatten utterly and completely broken. The evidence we have is not just a rumor. It's a paper trail of greed and betrayal that leads directly to the people she was forced to call her family. This is the story of the ultimate Dowie deception. Before we dive into the sordid details, the leaked emails, and the financial records that expose this entire conspiracy, do me a favor. If you believe in uncovering the truth behind the camera, hit that like button right now. And if you're not already subscribed to the Tell All tapes, now is the time to do it and ring that bell. Because you are not going to want to miss a single update on this breaking story. The information we are about to reveal is explosive, and this is the only channel bringing you the full unvarnished truth. Alright, let's get into it. To understand the sheer evil of what happened in late 2025, we have to rewind the tape. We have to go back through the years of pain, the tears, the public humiliation that Jenny endured at the hands of Sadhna and Anil. Remember the beginning, the constant rejection, the societal shame, the absolute refusal to even entertain the idea of their son marrying an American woman twice his age. We watched as Sad dramatically threatened to end her own life. We witnessed the family astrologer, a tool of manipulation, declare the union a cosmic impossibility. Every single visit, every interaction was steeped in a thick, suffocating cloud of disapproval. They didn't just dislike Jenny. They saw her as a stain on their family's honor, a walking, talking symbol of their son's defiance and their own perceived failure in the eyes of their community. We, the audience, were led to believe this was a cultural battle, a war of tradition versus modern love. We thought the core issue was the age gap, the cultural differences, the fact that Jen couldn't provide them with grandchildren. These were the reasons they gave, the narrative they carefully constructed for the cameras and for their own social cycles. And for a time, it seemed that was the truth. After years of fighting, after Sumit finally stood his ground and chose his wife over his parents' archaic demands, we saw a shift. A slow, grudging acceptance began to form. Also, we were led to believe. Sadhna started teaching Jenny how to cook. Anil offered quiet, almost polite greetings. The tension, while never fully gone, seemed to have subsided into a manageable, simmering peace. They moved into a home near Sumit's parents. They were, for all intents and purposes, a family. We celebrated this as a victory for love. We thought Jenny's perseverance had finally paid off, that her unwavering devotion to Sumit had melted the icy hearts of his parents. We celebrated far too soon. What we were seeing wasn't acceptance. It was Act 2 of a much darker play. It was the lulling of the prey before the strike. The story of the Great Deception begins in late 2025. It's a time of relative calm. Jenny and Sumit have settled into their life. The constant drama seems to be a thing of past. Then something unexpected happens. Sadhna and Anil request a formal meeting. Not a casual drop-in, but a serious sit-down family discussion. Jenny naturally is apprehensive. Years of conditioning have taught her to expect the worst. Sumit, on the other hand, is optimistic. He sees this as a positive step, a sign that his parents are finally ready to engage with them as a married couple as equals. They arrive at Jenny and Sumit's home, but they don't come with accusations or tears. They come bearing what they call a peace offering. But it's more than that. They call it a plan for the future, a legacy for their son. Sadhna, with a practiced air of sincerity, begins to speak. She talks about their age, about wanting to ensure Sumit is taken care of long after they are gone. Anil nods in solemn agreement, adding that a man's worth in their society is tied to his ability to provide, to have a respectable business and a standing in the community. They paint a picture of Sumit as a man without a real profession, a man dependent on his wife's pension. It's a subtle dig cloaked in the language of parental concern. They tell Sumit and Jenny that they have been thinking they have. decided to use their own savings and their business connections to start a new venture, a small upscale textile export business. They talk about the booming market for authentic Indian fabrics in the West. They've already scouted suppliers. They claim they've already spoken to potential buyers in Europe and America. And here's the masterstroke. They want to make Sumit the managing partner, not just an employee, but the face of the company. His name, they say, will be on the door. This will be his legacy, the Singh family business, a way for him to finally earn the respect that has eluded him. For Sumit, who has spent his entire life feeling like a disappointment, a failure in the eyes of his father, this is everything he has ever wanted to hear. It's validation. It's respect. It's the promise of a future where he is no longer the black sheep, but the proud patriarch in training. He is, according to our sources, visibly moved, his eyes filling with tears of gratitude. Jenny watches this and her heart softens. How could it not? This is the moment she has dreamed of, not for herself, but for her husband. The moment his parents would finally see him, respect him, and love him for who he is. She sees the joy on Sumit's face, a pure, unadulterated happiness she hasn't seen since their wedding day. And in that moment, her guard comes down completely. Then comes the hook. Anil, in his calm, authoritative voice, explains that for a business like this to succeed, to secure the necessary loans and lines of credit, the family must present a united financial front. They need to show significant capital investment. They claim they are putting in a substantial amount of their own money, but it's not quite enough to launch at the scale they envision. They turn to Jenny. They don't ask, not directly at first. Instead, they frame it as an opportunity for her. An opportunity to become a true part of the Singh family, not just in name, but in legacy. Sadina takes Jenny's hands. Her eyes, which once held so much contempt, are now filled with what appears to be warm maternal affection. She tells Jenny, 4 years, did not understand. In my heart, was afraid. But watching how you love my son, you have shown me what it means to be a wife. This business is for Sumit. It is for his future, but it is also for you. It is for your future together. The emotional manipulation is a work of art. She continues, her voice trembling slightly. When you invest in this, you are not just investing money. You are investing your faith in our family. This proves you are truly our daughter now. You are securing your husband's future. And in doing so, you are securing your own. The phrase "our daughter now" is the key that unlocks Jenny's last reserves of caution. It's the one thing she has shown me what it means to be a wife. Crave for over a decade. To be accepted, to belong. Sumit, bursting with excitement, jumps in. He's already sold on the dream. Jenny, my love, this is it. This is the chance we've been waiting for. My parents believe in us. Can you believe it? He turns to her, his face all light. It's a foolproof plan. They've explained everything. The market is strong. We could double our money in a few years, maybe even triple it. We wouldn't have to worry about your pension anymore. We would be set for life, our life. Jenny has her doubts, that a small nagging voice in the back of her mind reminds her of all the years of lies. The catfishing, the secret first marriage, the endless hostility from these two very people now sitting in her living room smiling, liquidating her retirement account, her entire life savings, the safety net she painstakingly built over a lifetime of work in America. It's a terrifying thought. It's everything she has. But then she looks at Sumit. She sees the hope in his eyes. She sees his dream of parental approval finally coming true, and she thinks, what if this is real? What if they have finally changed? Refusing would mean shattering Sumit's dream. It would mean rejecting this peace offering and potentially plunging the family back into a state of war. Would make her look like the one who doesn't trust, the one who is not truly committed to the family. Sadhna and Anil have engineered the situation perfectly. To say no would be to prove their old suspicions about her right. To say yes is to become their daughter, and so against her better judgment. Lulled by the siren song of acceptance and the desperate joyful pleading in her husband's eyes, Jenny agrees. The deception is now in motion. The next few weeks are a whirlwind of activity. Sumit is more animated and happy than Jenny has ever seen him. He and his father are constantly on the phone discussing suppliers, logistics, and incorporation. They use business terms that sound impressive and complex. They present Jenny with a stack of documents all in Hindi explaining that they are just formalities for registering the business. Singh legacy exports. Sumit quickly summarizes them for her, assuring her it's all standard procedure. He is the bridge of trust and his parents are using him to perfection. The most difficult part for Jenny is the process of liquidating her American retirement account. She has to make calls to her financial advisor in the United States, a man she has trusted for decades. He of course raises serious concerns. He asks her if she has consulted with an independent financial advisor in India, if she has had a lawyer review the business proposal. He warns her about the risks of investing her entire nest egg into a foreign startup, especially one run by family members with whom she has a notoriously troubled history. Every warning he gives is a logical red flag. But when she brings these concerns to Sumit, he brushes them off with a smile. "Oh, Jenny, you Americans are always so formal with lawyers and contracts. This is family. We don't operate that way. My father has been in business his whole life. He knows what he's doing. And this family accountant they use, he has handled our family's finances for 30 years. He is like an uncle to me. Trust me. Trust my family." The pressure is immense. Every time she hesitates, she's met with Sumit's disappointed face or a passive-aggressive comment from Sadhna about her daughter's trust. The emotional weight is unbearable. She is made to feel that her hesitation is not a sign of prudence, but a sign of her lack of faith in her husband and her new family. So, she pushes through the process. She signs the papers. She authorizes the liquidation. A substantial 6F figure, sum the result of a lifetime of work, is transferred from the safety of her American account into a newly opened Indian bank account. An account that she is told is the primary holding account for the new business. An account to which she has access, but one that Sumit and his parents also have control over for operational flexibility. As Anil explains it, the day the money clears, there is a small celebration. Sadhna cooks a feast. Anil pours expensive whiskey. They toast to the future, to Singh legacy exports, and to their new daughter, Jenny. For Jen, the moment is surreal. It feels like a dream. The relief is palpable. The war is finally over. She has bought her way into the family. She has secured her husband's happiness and she believes their shared future. She has no idea that she hasn't bought peace. She has just paid the price of her own destruction. Months begin to pass. At first, things seem to be going well. Sumit is busy, always on the phone, taking meetings with his father. He talks excitedly about a big order from a buyer in Germany, a new weaving technique they've discovered. It all sounds very promising. Jenny, wanting to be involved to feel like a true partner, asks to see some of the business's financial records. She's not suspicious, merely curious. She wants to understand the business she has invested her entire life into. This is where the first real crack in the facade appears. When she asks Sumit to see the books, he becomes strangely evasive. "Oh, it's all very boring stuff, Jenny. Lots of numbers and receipts. You wouldn't find it interesting." She presses, saying she'd still like to see it. He then changes his tune. "It's very complex. The accounting here is different than in America. My father's accountant handles everything. It's all in a ledger and a locked office. Don't even have the key. The excuses are flimsy and they keep changing. One day the paperwork is with the accountant. The next day it's being audited. The day after that it's being translated for potential foreign partners. It's a constant runaround." When she approaches Sadhna and Anil directly, she is met with condescending smiles. "Jenny, dear, you don't need to worry your pretty head about these things." Sadhna tells her, patting her hand, "This is men's work. You just enjoy your life. We are taking care of Sumit. We are taking care of you." They treat her not like an investor, not like a partner, but like a simple-minded child. They are shutting her out of her own investment. The warm, welcoming family has been replaced by a secretive, dismissive wall. The feeling of dread that she had suppressed for so long begins to creep back cold and sharp. She tries to tell herself she's being paranoid, that this is just a cultural difference in how business is conducted. But in her gut, she knows something is wrong. The breaking point comes from a place of tragedy. Jenny receives a call from America. A close family member, her sister, has had a serious medical emergency and needs an expensive surgery. The insurance won't cover the full cost. Jenny, without a second thought, assures her family she will help. She has her savings, her investment. She can easily wire the $20,000 needed. It is, after all, her money. She goes to the bank in India, the one where they set up the business account. She fills out the paperwork for an international wire transfer. She feels a sense of relief that despite the weirdness with the business records, she can still provide for her family back home when they need her. The next day, she receives a call from the bank manager. The transfer has been blocked. He informs her that the account has insufficient funds to cover the transfer. Jenny is confused. That's impossible. She tells him there should be hundreds of thousands of dollars in that account. The manager is polite but firm. He informs her that the current balance is less th. 5,000 American dollars. A series of large withdrawals and transfers have been made over the past few months. Jenny's blood runs cold. She feels dizzy. This has to be a mistake, a bank error. She rushes to the bank in person. The manager shows her the statements. He shows her a series of large transfers, moving massive sums of money from their joint business account to a series of other accounts she doesn't recognize. The transactions are all authorized, signed off by the other account holders, Sumit and Anil. Her mind is racing. She tries to call Sumit, but he doesn't answer. She goes home, her heart pounding in her chest. She confronts Sumit the moment he walks in the door. She shows him the bank statement. At first, he tries to play dumb to feign surprise. "This must be a mistake," he says, his eyes darting around the room, unable to meet her gaze. But Jenny is done with excuses. The panic in her voice is real. Her sister needs this money. It's a matter of life and death. What if the peace we all thought we were seeing was never peace at all? What if the smiles, the calmer family dinners, the softer tone, and the idea that everything had finally settled down between Jenny Slatten, Sumit, and his parents were only the surface of something much darker? Today, we are diving into a story that has fans talking for one reason and one reason only: the feeling that something never fully added up. Now, before we go any further, let's be clear about one thing. This video explores allegations, suspicions, and a growing cloud of questions surrounding Jenny and Sumit's family dynamic. These claims have not been proven as fact, but when you line up the history, the behavior, the emotional pressure, and the financial concerns being discussed by insiders and fans alike, the picture becomes impossible to ignore. And honestly, once you hear this whole story laid out from beginning to end, you may never look at this family the same way again. Because if even part of this is true, then what Jenny went through was not just emotional rejection. It was something far more calculated, something far more personal, and something that may have been unfolding quietly for years while everyone thought the storm had already passed. For a long time, the public story was simple. Sumit's parents did not approve of Jenny. We were told it was about culture. We were told it was about age. We were told it was about expectations, family honor, grandchildren, social shame, and the deep discomfort that came with their son choosing a woman from another country who was decades older than him. That was the version placed in front of us again and again. And to be fair, it seemed believable. We watched the tension play out on camera. We watched Jenny cry. We watched Sumit break down. We watched his parents resist with a force that felt almost impossible to overcome. There were threats, ultimatums, emotional scenes, and moments so intense that it seemed like there would never be any way forward. Fans remember those years clearly. Every step Jenny took toward building a life with Sumit seemed to come with a fresh wave of humiliation. She was not simply ignored. She was challenged, undermined, tested, and made to feel like an intruder in a family that never wanted her there. And yet she stayed. That is what made so many people root for her. Whatever you think about their relationship, Jenny kept showing up. She kept fighting for the life she believed in. She kept choosing Sumit even when the cost was enormous. That is why, when things finally seemed to calm down, so many viewers felt relief. Maybe the worst was over. Maybe time had softened the anger. Maybe Sumit's parents had finally accepted that this marriage was real and that Jenny was not going anywhere. It looked like progress. It looked like the end of a war. But what if it was only the end of one phase and the beginning of another? Because according to the version now circulating behind the scenes, the calm that arrived later was not a sign of love, forgiveness, or acceptance. It may have been strategy. It may have been patience. It may have been the moment the conflict stopped being loud and became something quieter, colder, and far more dangerous. And to understand why people are now asking those questions, we have to go back. We have to go back to the emotional foundation that had already been built over years. Because when someone has been rejected long enough, when they have been made to fight for every small sign of approval, when they have lived under tension for so long that even basic kindness feels like a breakthrough, they become vulnerable in ways that are hard to explain unless you have lived it yourself. That is what makes this story so unsettling. Not just the money being discussed, not just the possible deception, but the emotional setup that may have made the whole thing possible. Jenny did not enter that family with trust. She entered it wounded, exhausted, and desperate for peace. And that matters. Because if someone wanted to manipulate her later, they would already know exactly which emotional door to open. They would know her weak spot. They would know what she had spent years craving. Acceptance, belonging, a moment when she was no longer the outsider. A moment when she was finally treated like family. That is the detail that changes everything. Because if that acceptance was offered at exactly the right time, in exactly the right way, with exactly the right emotional language, then it would not just be comforting. It would be disarming. It would lower every defense she still had left. And from there, the rest becomes much easier to imagine. Let's talk about the timing. By late 2025, the constant chaos that had defined so much of Jenny and Sumit's story seemed to have eased. They were no longer living inside a non-stop emotional battlefield, at least not publicly. There was less screaming, less confrontation, less obvious resistance. It looked like a new chapter. For many couples, that kind of calm would be a chance to rebuild, to breathe, to create stability, to finally stop living in survival mode. But sometimes calm does not mean safety. Sometimes calm is where the real leverage begins. According to this version of events, there was a formal sit-down, not a casual family visit, not another emotional argument, a serious conversation, structured, planned, intentional, and that alone would have been unusual enough to get Jenny's attention. Because for most of their history, interactions with Sumit's parents had come with unpredictability. But now the energy was different, more composed, more direct, more almost professional. And that change in tone may have been the first sign that whatever was happening next had been thought through carefully. In this meeting, the topic was not disapproval. It was the future, a business future, a legacy, a chance, supposedly, for Sumit to finally stand on his own feet in a way that would bring him status, pride, and family respect. Think about how powerful that would be for him. Sumit had spent years being made to feel like the family disappointment. He had disappointed expectations, defied tradition, embarrassed his parents publicly, and followed a relationship path that caused endless conflict. So imagine what it would mean if the same parents who had spent years rejecting his choices suddenly came to him with an offer that sounded like validation. Not tolerance, not reluctant peace, validation. A business opportunity with his name on it, a family-backed future, a chance to stop being the black sheep and become the son they could finally be proud of. That is not a small emotional shift. That is the kind of offer that lands directly on the deepest wound. And that is what makes people question whether this was random or whether it was a deliberate appeal to the exact insecurity that had always defined Sumit's place in that family. Because if you know someone spends their entire life desperate for your approval, you do not need to scream to control them. You only need to offer them the one thing they have always wanted, then attach conditions to it. And if that was the play here, it was brutally effective. The business idea itself sounded respectable. Textiles, export, Indian craftsmanship sold abroad, a growing market, existing contacts, experienced family guidance, a structure that sounded plausible enough to pass the first test. especially if it came from people presenting themselves as the elders who knew the system, knew the market, knew the right people, and knew how things worked in their own country. On the surface, it was not some wild fantasy. It was not a cartoon scam. It was the kind of idea that could sound smart, serious, and culturally rooted. And that matters, because the most effective cons do not look like cons at first. They look like opportunity. They sound practical. They arrive wrapped in logic and family concern. They make you feel foolish for doubting them. But of course, the real center of this alleged plan was never just the business. The real center was the ask that came after. The money. Because that is the moment where everything shifts from emotional reconciliation into financial risk. And according to this growing narrative, the pitch was carefully framed. Not as a demand. Not even as a direct request in the beginning. It was framed as trust. As commitment, as family, as proof. Proof that Jenny believed in Sumit's future. Proof that she believed in the family's new beginning. Proof that she was truly one of them. And that kind of framing is powerful because it turns caution into betrayal. The moment someone makes trust the currency, every reasonable question starts to look like disloyalty. Every hesitation starts to feel selfish. Every red flag begins to look like fear instead of wisdom. That is how people get cornered without realizing it. Not by force, but by emotional design. And if Jenny was told that putting money into this venture would show she was finally their daughter, then that goes beyond business.